Hello creeps! Andy here, and today I have my reading wrap up for May. I think now, going forward, hopefully my videos will be... Dude, there's a huge knot in my hair. Anyway, sorry. Going forward, from now, I think my videos are going to be way more consistent. Fingers crossed. Here's to hoping. But anyways, I do have a huge book haul coming up. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but it's coming. It's a coming. But for now, I have another reading wrap up. These are all the books that I read last month. So let's jump into it. Feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what books you read, your favorites and your least favorites of the month. The first one that I read was Senseless by Ronald Malfi. This one I was so excited for. This is Ronald Malfi's new book from this year, just came out. This one is about a woman who is murdered. That's what happens first, and the story, all of the story kind of revolves around this woman being murdered, but it's not really about her being murdered. It a little bit is, but it more so takes place with all the other characters surrounding her. Oh yeah, it circles this death with a cast of diverse characters and locations. What a better way of saying it. Good job, me. So the detective on the case sees that there are definitely some similarities between this woman who has been murdered and a murder that took place a year prior. So we have the detective. He's one of the main characters. He's dealing with the loss of his wife. He also connects to the first woman who got murdered, her husband. So them two kind of have like some sort of rapport. They kind of bond a little bit because of them both going through the grief of losing their wives. You also have a woman who's dating a filmmaker, like a famous filmmaker in Hollywood. She meets his son, who's got some issues, let me tell you. And she starts to think that he has something to do with that murder that took place, the second murder. Oh yes, you also have this one guy who's got some serious issues. He lives with his mom, and every time he goes to bars around town, he sees this one girl. He's essentially like stalking her. He's trying to find her, talk to her. And he starts to believe that she's a vampire, and so he wants to turn into a vampire too. So this is how I picture this writing process going. Someone was like, hey, Ronald Malfi, this next book that you're gonna write, is it gonna be about a serial killer? Or wait, a supernatural tale of vampires? No, a family drama, or better yet, a detective novel. And Ronald Malfi went, yup. So it's kind of a bit of everything all rolled into one, which is a bit fun. I will say though, I was a little disappointed because it takes place in Palmdale and in LA. Two places that I know very well, that I grew up in. So I was a little disappointed. It felt a little bit like somebody writing about the desert who had never been to the desert. And I don't mean to be nitpicky, but I was really excited for it to take place in Palmdale. I was like, let's go. Such a great place for a horror book to take place. And it was a little disappointing with the choice of location. There were just some things in there, like every time he talked about Palmdale, he talked about seeing coyotes. And I grew up out there my whole childhood. I don't think I saw one coyote. And where I live, much closer to LA, I see coyotes constantly. Every day I go outside and see a coyote. So like just little things like that, you know, where I was just like, probably not the biggest deal in the world. Definitely not going to ruin the story. But I was really excited for the location, and it bummed me out a little bit. Just little things like that where it felt like it was somebody who wrote about a place that maybe had never been there before. I did write that I did enjoy the story and it was interesting. However, Ronald Malfi typically writes horror books that are horror on the surface but have deeper meaning, that are more heartbreaking, more relatable situations underneath that you can connect with, about death and grief and guilt and relationships between siblings and parent and childhood trauma and addiction. There's usually a lot going on beneath the surface, and this was just kind of your baseline horror story, and that's completely fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And in fact, in the back of one of his books, it may have been Come With Me, he does talk about how writing those stories kind of weigh on him a bit more. So totally understand him wanting to kind of take a break from the deeper stuff and just write a horror story. But those are the books that I prefer from Ronald Malfi. Those are my favorites from him. The Come With Me's, the Black Mouse, the Night Parades, the ones that have a little bit more depth to them. This one did have a little bit of that, common themes of like running from your past and being haunted by your past and things like that, but they just did not feel as deep as books that he has written prior. I also feel, let me know if you guys felt the same way, but this felt less polished than some of his other books. There are some things in here that were like even lines that were repeated, or just little things. Like, it wasn't that it was a bad book, it wasn't that it was poorly written, nothing like that, but it just felt more rushed than his other books. And I don't know, maybe it was the editing or the writing, or I'm not sure, but this one just felt a little bit different than other Ronald Malfi books. So curious what you guys think of this one. Still glad I read it. Still enjoyed it. I still would recommend it to Ronald Malfi fans, but I definitely would say it's a bit different from books that I have raved about consistently over the past few years. The last thing I'll say is I'm so over onomatopoeias in books. If I never read an onomatopoeia again, I will be a happy camper, and I never knew that that was something that bothered me until this year, because the books that we've been reading together have been so overloaded with them that even if I see one in a book, I'm like, no, you know, I'm like fearful of the onomatopoeia. Okay. Next one that I read was The Spy Coast by Tess Gerritsen. I have been just eating her books up this year. I've read a lot of fine books, like books that are fine, but nothing that's blowing me away in the past few months. And I will say that the Tess Gerritsens are just always consistently good books. So this is actually her first spy book, which I am by no means an expert in spy books. This is my first one that I've ever read. So this is just my views on this one, you know, and it's her first spy book too. It's not like that's typically her genre of choice. So yeah, kind of an interesting switch in writing, which is cool to see authors explore. This one is about a group of retired CIA agents, I believe. Yeah. And they live in, I want to say it's Maine. Yes, in Maine. So they've all retired from the CIA and they've all end up congregating in Maine, just living their old people retired lives. Something happens and they realize that one of the people that have worked on this specific CIA mission back in the day, that information has been resurfaced and people now know who, like, their names have been unearthed. And so they're a little concerned, like who unearthed it, why they wanted to know, is someone after them, all that kind of stuff. Maggie is our main character. She is the one whose name got unearthed from this past project. So you have them retired and old and this stuff coming up, and then it goes back in time and you get to see them be spies as well. But I liked it because it wasn't like cool gadgets and, you know, hot women and 007 type of spy. It was just more, I feel like, maybe realistic to what the CIA actually does and their kind of undercover missions. It wasn't anything too crazy, you know? It was just like people doing jobs and that's kind of it. Another cool thing that I liked was a lot of it was kind of like them contemplating aging. And they say a lot of things like, back when we were working for the CIA, we had to get disguises to blend in. Now people overlook us. We blend in anyways because of our age. People don't think we're important and they kind of push us to the side. And so it is kind of an interesting conversation on aging in general, which I thought was an interesting topic as well. I like it because it takes place in snowy Maine during winter when they're older, but then you go back in time and you get these like hot summers in all these different countries all over the world, and you get to see them on their missions when they're young and what they're doing and their lives past and how they're so different from their lives now. And another cool thing about this one is that the writer and her husband moved, I believe, to Maine, but I could be wrong, somewhere East Coast. And her husband's a physician. It says this in the back of the book. And he kept asking, oh, what do you do for work? And they'd say, oh, I am retired. I used to work for the government. And they say, oh, what did you do? And they go, I can't tell you. And this kept happening. And he's like, what is going on? And then they realized that they were in some like retirement community with a bunch of either CIA or FBI agents, which I thought was so interesting and such a cool concept to begin to write a story about. So yeah, kind of cool real life, and it spurred this idea for her, and then she got to write this whole world around it. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty interesting. I even bought the second one to this one, and everyone just thinks that they're old and they don't know what they're doing. And there's also the cops in town get involved because some people come after Maggie and somebody ends up dead, and the cops are trying to figure it out, and they're like, you guys don't know anything, and they're like, we know a lot more than you do. So it was just an interesting book. There's a second one also. I think that one's called the Martini Club, which is what they call their little group of elderly people who get together and drink martinis, and they have a book club. They don't ever talk about the book. It's cute. It was a cute book. One theme you will see this month is the desert. I am stuck on desert books. And I also read Death Valley by Melissa Broder. This one I took notes on too. So this is quite an interesting little book. It's kind of a meditation on grief, life, death, but it's funny and clever, and it's really refreshing to read a book about such heavy subjects, but laugh through it. I can't think of another book that made me do that. So I really, really liked this. It's about a woman whose father is in a coma. He's been really sick. She ends up taking a week off, or maybe 2 weeks, going into the desert and trying to write her novel, or finish her novel. I don't know if magical realism is the right word to describe it, but she goes hiking one day and ends up finding this huge cactus that she climbs inside of. Like, that's how big it is. She walks inside of it. And a lot of it is just about her past and the relationship between her and her father and her and her husband. And it's just an interesting book. I really, really enjoyed this one. There are also some interesting parallels between her getting lost in the desert and her father in a coma and things like that. There's a lot, I think, under the surface to this one too. But it's a slow, easy read, and it was an enjoyable, slow-paced book between all these fast-paced horror novels. And I really liked this one. I thought it was a blast. It also was a book that was preemptively dealing with death. She was almost this character coming to terms with the fact that her father was going to die while he was in a coma. So I don't know that I've ever read a book that kind of explored the themes of death prior to that person dying. That was really interesting too. Anyways, really enjoyed this one. A weird little book, but I really liked it. I really liked the humor in it. I thought it was fun. The next one that I read was The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsman. And I am so sorry if you liked this book, but I did not like it. I thought that this was very slow. My goodness, so slow. Oh, and it was boring. It was boring. A lot of it was boring. It's about this guy. He is Mr. Ripley. Can't even remember his first name. I don't know, like fucking Jack or something. What's this loser's name? Tom. Okay, Tom Ripley. He's in New York. He meets this guy, this older guy, and he goes, "Hey, you're really good friends with my son." And he's like, "Oh yeah, we're best friends." And in his head, he's like, "Man, I kind of know him." The dad says, "I will pay your trip to Europe if you can convince him to come home. His mom's sick. He hasn't come home in a long time, blah, blah, blah." And Tom Ripley's like, "A free trip to Europe? Buddy, I'm in." And he's so weird. He writes these letters from the government telling people they owe additional money, like to the IRS for income tax, but he never gets the money from them. So it's not like he's stealing money. He's just fucking with people. Like, he truly just enjoys fucking with people. He's such a weird character. And it's called The Talented Mr. Ripley, so you think, oh, he's going to be, smart and get out of all these crimes because he's so intelligent. And it should just be called The Dumb Mr. Ripley. The only reason why he doesn't get caught in the shit that he does is because other people around him are stupid. That's it. Or luck. There's nothing. He's not intelligent. He's not cunning. He's quite irritating. Nobody really likes him. And so, yeah, he goes to Europe and he ends up committing these crimes. And for kind of no reason, it's a weird book, okay? It's a weird book. One of the girls in my book club, because this is what that's from, it was my pick for the book club. Whoops, sorry. One of the girls did like it, and she said that it was supposed to be also like a tour guide through Europe, which is cool and innovative for the time. I think it was written in the 50s, 55. So yeah, that's great. But why am I reading about Tom Ripley going to different hotels and different restaurants when it's supposed to be a thriller book? And 90% of this book, I'm not joking, 90% of this book was, and then I went to dinner here, and then I walked to this street, and then I saw this, and then I stayed in this hotel. And if half of the book were cut out, it would make no difference to the story. So it was a little frustrating for me, a little slow, a little boring. That's just me. I will read the book or watch the movie though, because my friend has watched the movie and he said that it is a good movie. And it seems like the character of Tom Ripley is quite different in the book and the movie. So I am interested to watch it, but my goodness, I will not read any more of those books because they were just not for me. Let me know if you guys have read this one. I'm so curious how other people feel about it, but most of the girls in the book club were not a fan, and one person liked it, so you win some, you lose some. Next up, my cozy mystery, Strawberry Shortcake Sins. You guys, these books are so silly, and I just love them. And yeah, you know, there's a baker, there's a murder, she tries to solve it. Same as always. A little bit more is going on in this one. There's kind of like an additional storyline in here that made this book interesting. Don't want to tell you what it is, because if you guys are reading these, you'll be surprised at what happens around this time. So I don't want to ruin it for anyone. But yeah, same thing. It's cheesy. It's silly. They've been in a love triangle for fucking 30 books, and I'm still hooked. Still love them. Okay, next I read Rainbow Filth by Tim Meyer. Now this one I just found. A lot of the time I go on Goodreads and just scroll and see what you guys are reading. By the way, sometimes you guys read some real weird stuff and I'm here for it. And I saw this one and I just thought it was the coolest cover ever. I had to pick it up. So I purchased it. I bought it. I read it. And it was one of the most original storylines that I've read in a long time. It was a really cool concept for a book. So it's about this guy, he's dating this girl, and she's involved in her old teacher and a few schoolmates, classmates. They're interested in this thing called Rainbow Filth. I don't want to give too much away because I do think that the story is worth reading, and I do think that it's a really cool concept, and so I don't want to give anything away for those of you who will eventually read it. But basically it's called Rainbow Filth. It's this drug, and it kind of, you know, like those drugs that are supposed to open up parts of your mind or whatever. There's this doorway that opens up once you take it and you go through, and the world's kind of like rainbowy and weird, and there's different creatures and stuff in it. Cool concept. Like one of the more original concepts I've read with a horror novella. Really enjoyed that. There were a few things that I didn't love about it. The first thing is that the back just says that it's about a small cult that believes a rare psychotic substance can physically transport them to another universe. And then I got to the end and I was like, wait, are they the cults? Like, cult I just don't think for me is the right word. Cults to me is a leader who's taking advantage of people, and that just did not seem to me to be the dynamic of the book. They all went willingly. They all were interested in this drug. They were all just like, yeah, people that were interested in this. So I was a little disappointed and felt a little bit misled that it said cults when I have like an image of in my head of what a cult is, and this just was not it for me personally. And the only other thing that bothered me is you start the book with our main character being interrogated by the police because somebody in the group may be missing, and so they're trying to pin it on him, that somebody in the group has been missing. So the whole book is told, there's like interrogations, and then he goes back and tells the story of what happened, and then there's an interrogation, and then he goes back and tells the story. So it's cool. That wasn't my problem with it. But my issue was that they were recording it, trying to pin it on this guy that he had something to do with the disappearance. And so they're recording it obviously to have evidence for like a trial if it goes there. And the whole time the cop's just like, you're a fucking idiot, you stupid loser, idiot face. And I'm like, I don't think that that's how cops interrogate people when they're being recorded. Maybe when they're not, I don't know. I've never been in an interrogation where I was suspected of murdering someone. I know, crazy, wild. But maybe that is how it is. I don't know. I don't watch interrogations, so maybe. But to me, it just felt so unrealistic that a little bit it took me out of the story. So if the cop were just like a little bit more professional, or like trying to be more cunning and trying to lead him to say more things without just being like, you're a big dumb idiot the whole time, I think I would have liked it a little bit more. Next book that I've read, somebody sent me this. This is called People Live Still in, but this Tim Meyer book, I will definitely be reading more of his work just because of how original that concept was. Somebody sent me this. It's called People Live Still in Cashtown Corners by Tony Burgess. I had never heard of this before. I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was actually a really interesting book. So thank you so much to whoever sent it. But basically it picks up, we don't know anything about anything, but it picks up on the specific day that our main character just decides to murder anybody who makes his life even mildly uncomfortable. He just goes on a murdering rampage, okay? We don't know anything about anything. It's told from his perspective, so we're really not told anything. We have an unreliable narrator. Obviously, he's losing his absolute marbles, just murdering people. He's like, oh, this is an awkward conversation. I'm just gonna kill this person. Like, he's nuts, okay? And he ends up, murdering people, whatever, going to this house, murdering people, murdering more people, murder, lots of murder. And then one of the people that he murders, he begins talking to like they're alive. And then in the middle of the book, you have these pictures of dead bodies, but it's a fiction book, so I think they're fake, but I don't know. Because it kind of goes on this whole thing about the murders and the staff of the people and who, I don't know. It's very weird. So I'm not 100% sure. I guess I could have done a little bit more digging, but I think it's fake. But it added definitely a creepy element going through and seeing these murder victims from this guy. But he's just like so unself-aware. It's so funny. I can't remember verbatim, but something happens and he's like, man, that person's nuts. And you're like, sir, you are living in a house with a bunch of dead bodies that you killed. It's just such a weird book, and I really liked it. And that's all I have to say about this one. The back doesn't really tell you much either. It just says that he's never been comfortable around people until he starts killing them. That's it. So yeah, what a fun little book. Thank you for sending me this. Yeah, just right up my alley. A weird book that I'd never heard of before. And I thought it was quite fun. I read my husband quite a few quotes from that, and he was like, what are you reading? Next, I read this guy, The Last Session by Julia Bartz. She wrote a book a few years past called The Writing Retreat. That was her first novel. This is her second novel. And this one, what a weird little book this is, okay? If you guys have read The Writing Retreat, I can see how people would read that one and then kind of expect this to follow suit, being just a typical thriller book. And this one gets weird. Like, it gets weird. And I don't mind weird. But I can see how people were expecting kind of a typical thriller book, and then they get thrown in here and they're like, what the fuck is happening? But this is about a girl. Is she a therapist or... okay, so she works at a psychiatric ward. She's some sort of like therapist or something. So she works, like it says, at a psychiatric ward. And this famous person that she idolized from her childhood shows up there. It seems like they have some sort of connection, and then the girl just disappears, leaves. She was taken out by her parents, but when her parents show up, they realize, oh, whoopsie, wasn't her parents after all. Then our main therapist, her name's Thea, she believes that the girl, I think the other girl's name is Catherine, but I could be wrong. Let's just call her Catherine. I'm pretty sure that's her name. Yeah, Catherine. Thea believes Catherine has like left her messages to show her where she's going. So Thea ends up buying tickets to this like fancy resort's the wrong word, therapy retreat thing for people with issues in relationships in the middle of the desert, hosted by these people who have this like up and coming podcast who promise to help you find your soulmate and kind of heal your relationship trauma. So she goes and comes to find out that it's a bit culty, it's a bit weird, there's some weird stuff going on, and the book really is dealing with trauma and traumatic experiences as a child, and also kind of interesting how you see those experiences shape each of the people. Some people take those experiences and then use that to help others, and then some people take those experiences and use other people to help themselves. So it is kind of an interesting look at how trauma shapes you as a person and like what type of person you become. And also just kind of a broad, everyone's got their own backstory going on, their own shit that happened in childhood and stuff that made them the way that they are. But another one takes place in the desert. Really liked that. This desert, I really enjoyed. I thought that this was like a well-written, made sense. It wasn't like a focal point of the story, but when it was brought up, I liked it. Same with the Death Valley one too. I liked this book. It was weird because they just go to this retreat. She's trying to find this missing girl, but then a lot of weird past life stuff comes up. and a lot of like weird culty, you know, hippie in the middle of the woods type of people kind of stuff, which I don't know anything about. But the past stuff really threw me for a loop. And if it was just mentioned offhandedly, I don't think that it would have been so weird, but it's such a big part of the story and it keeps continually being brought up over and over again that it is a weird book. It is quite odd. I did like it though, and I feel like it was just weird enough for me. It's weird because this one and the writing retreat feel very similar in a lot of ways. Isolated locations and being forced to deal with yourself, you know, and come to terms with yourself in some ways. But they also feel very different. That one takes place in the winter and the snow. This one in the desert. That one's more about coming into your own as an adult. This one's more about revisiting your past. And so, yeah, kind of interesting, the differences and similarities between them. I really love that it was told from the perspective of a therapist though, because throughout this retreat, or whatever you would call it, she says like, okay, I can see what you're doing here and I can see that they're maybe helping in this way, but it also could be dangerous because of this. And it seemed like it was quite knowledgeable on those topics. I want to say that the Julia Bartz worked in some sort of therapy type setting. Anyways, I thought this was interesting. Not my favorite book. I liked the writing retreat more only because of weird past life stuff. Like it did get weird. It did get weird. Anyways, next I read The Deep by Nick Cutter. This was our book club pick. This is, well, the back tells you that it's about this disease called the Gets, and this veterinarian gets called that his brother, a scientist, is at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and he potentially has discovered something that could help this disease that's just ravaging the world. It's making people forget how to eat, forget how to think, forget how to breathe, and they die. So I guess it's a global pandemic. So he goes to meet up with his brother, he gets down to the ocean floor, and really the story is about what being down there does to them. They have to confront their fears and confront their past. He's with other people and they're all kind of dealing with their own stuff. So it really doesn't have anything to do with the Gets, which is a little, again, disappointing because you get a book and it says, hey, here, the book's about this, and then really it's about that. And you're like, but what about this? You told me it was about this. And so it feels a little, it kind of threw me off a bit. And I think it threw a few of you off too that were there for the book club. The first half, really loved. The first like 100 pages, really, really loved. The last part, still don't know how I feel about it. Very weird. A very weird ending for this book. It was real well written, however, and I did like some of it. Some people felt kind of like the claustrophobia of being down below, and I felt it was a little lackluster in that department. I thought a book like From Below did a much better job on the claustrophobia aspect of being underwater. But yeah, all in all, a strange little book. It felt a little bit like different horror books being put together. Like it felt like The Thing, Event Horizon, you know, kind of stuff like that. It did feel a little Stephen King too. So I don't know. Curious what you guys felt about that one. It seemed like most people were kind of indifferent about it, but I thought it was well written, just like a interesting horror book, but not my favorite. The last thing that I read was D7. This is Philip Precossi's new novella that just came out. And this is just about a husband and wife that go into this little bar in the middle of nowhere, and then they can't leave. Dun, dun, dun. And so you see songs being played on this jukebox, and the cover I love because it's a jukebox, and then the D and the 7 have like bloody prints on them. I thought that was a genius cover. And then you kind of get the backstory of why they're stuck there, what happened, blah, blah, blah. It's a cute story. Again, with Philip Fracassi books, usually there's a little bit more under the surface. And so I was expecting a novella like Sakulina, but I think maybe I need to stop doing that and comparing previous books to new books. This one was just kind of like a fun little horror story. It wasn't anything that deep, you know what I mean? And it's like a 50-page book. It's not gonna have a lot going on. So, but yeah, I thought it was fun. I'm always going to support my favorite writers, so I will continually pick up his novellas and books because I think he's a great writer. But yeah, it was just more fun than anything. So if you get a chance to read it, yeah, why not? But it's not anything like super deep like Sakulina or anything. My favorite book of this month, I think my highest rated was actually this Tess Gerritsen, or maybe, you know what, I think these are tied. I think Death Valley by Melissa Broder and The Spy Coast by Tess Gerritsen are tied for the highest. And I think my least favorite or my lowest rated book was actually The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. So let me know what you guys read. Let me know your favorite and lowest rated book of the month. Thank you so much for being here, and I will be seeing you soon, more often, meet you here more often, hopefully once, twice a week coming up. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for being here. But hopefully I will be able to be here for you more consistently. So thank you and see you soon. Bye.